I'm going to go over the demonstration, some of the things in InDesign I went over in class a few days ago, specifically talking about how to how to set up a master page so that you could quickly add repetitive images to it, specifically on our case, slides from a multi-page PDF. So one thing I have here already set up is a master page, and this is just a sample master page from a portfolio. Um, it's not that nice. It's just a demo page that I set up, but it suits our purpose. And one of the ideas is that this could be the main master page. And then one of the things, especially with a portfolio or any kind of large document that you're creating, you wind up having multiple master pages, and those master pages wind up kind of serving very specific tasks. And so what I'm going to do is I want a master page that basically has all this info, but it's also got empty image frames that I could add my slides to. So what I'm going to do is basically duplicate this my main master page. And I'm also going to rename it. I get in the habit of at least adding something descriptive to the names of master pages. I'm not as religious about it as I should be, but it does help to be able to see at a glance the purpose of the master page. And so sometimes you'll have one that's like a title master page for title pages or sections. And so you kind of break those down, that whenever you are repeating a page more than twice, you should just create a master page for it. It makes things so much better. Even if there's no text on it, being able to do things like pull down guides becomes immensely helpful. So I have my master page here, and I have created a guide exactly halfway down the middle of the paper. And remember, to be able to pull guides out, you can just click on the rulers and pull them down, and they're snappable objects. You can just kind of click on them and delete them. You could go into the views menu as well, and nope, where was it? It was there. Grids and guides, there it is. And you can delete all of them in one shot. So you have a few options for those here. The reason I created it at the halfway point is not because I want to snap to it, but because I know I'm going to have a row of, or a column of 3 images on the left side and a column of 3 images on the right. So when I drag that rectangle, I know not to cross my halfway point, since I'm going to mirror those slides. So now I need to bring the images in, and I'm going to show kind of the two different ways you get images into InDesign. And you're already familiar with the main one, which is dragging and dropping an image from the desktop, and which I'll do right now. I kind of have it conveniently set up at the top so I can drag and drop it. And this night is nice because it's super convenient, but one of the problems with it is that you only get one slide out of it. You don't get the other pages, and so you don't get the options for importing images into it. But I do need this one, so I'm not going to delete it. I'm going to use this as the template, because I need to make sure that the proportions, that's the ratio of height to width, is the same of my image containers as the images that I'm importing, or there will be kind of gaps around the edges. And so this is going to be my template. And I can just delete this right now, the image in the middle. See it when the hand changes, I could just click on it, and you could see around the edges it turns this kind of light blue. And if I hit delete, it's a little hard to see it in the background. So I actually might bring it back just because it's easier to see, and I can delete it later. But I need to resize it, and so I'm going to kind of move it in a position, or at least so that it's snapped. Oops. Command Z to undo, Control if you're on PC. I accidentally grabbed that image in the middle instead of grabbing the whole thing. So I'm just going to click off of it, click back on it, so that I know I'm just grabbing the image itself. So I've snapped to the left edge, and now I'm going to hit Command Shift and resize this. Now, if I just held the Command key down, you could see I could make this kind of rectangle whatever shape I want, and it distorts the image. So I don't want that. So I'm going to undo that, Command Z to undo. So that's why you hold down Command, again, Control on the PC, Command, Shift, and then I can resize this thing. I don't want to snap to this, because if I snap to it and I put another image on the other side, the images are going to touch each other. I want to leave a little gap, which you could kind of see. There's a little gap in between. And now I can check to see how this looks. So I'm going to hold the Option key down so that I'm duplicating an object while I'm dragging it. And then snapping this to my left margin. And that looks like a pretty good gap in between. So I'm just doing that visually. You know, if I wanted to, I could click over here on my rulers. And I can drag a new ruler out and it will actually snap to this edge. If I'm building multiple things off of this, multiple pages off of this, and I'm going to have different size images, I might do this. But it's not important for our uses, so I'll leave it alone. So I could just delete those. Again, if your rulers aren't showing, it's Command R or Control R, but I think you go, yep, it's under View, show and hide rulers as well. If your units are in some weird units, or you want to put them in some weird kind of units, that's under your preferences, units and increments. If you change the preferences while you do not have a file open, it will kind of change those preferences for everything. So it's a good idea if you want to switch to, say, inches because it's in something else, do that without a file open. Okay, back to this. All right, so I have two images in here now. But what I'm actually going to do, instead of, as I said, there's going to be 2 columns of 3 images. I could grab these and repeat them 2 more times, but I'm lazy and I just want to, in order to get things lined up, I'm going to work in columns. So I'm going to hold the Option key down, drag this thing down there, hold the Option key down. I'm not worrying about trying to get everything perfectly spaced. I am worrying to make sure, or I am making sure that everything is lined up, so everything's snapping to that left edge. And now what I want to do is adjust this, and the arrow keys will nudge things up or down. Adjust it so it's not over my text. I'm not worrying about the. All I'm really worrying about is the bottom one and the top one. The middle one, I'm going to use the distribute and align commands to perfectly space that. Actually, I think I'm going to grab the whole thing. Oh, I almost grabbed because I am working off of the on a master slide. These aren't locked, so I can accidentally delete them if I'm not careful. So a lot of times, and I'll talk about that when we go over to a regular page and not a master page. But I'm scooting all the slides up just so that it looks a little better. Now I'm going to grab all 3 of these. And I'm going to bring my align and distribute palette up, one of my favorites, and I'm going to select distribute by vertical centers, and it just moves the middle one. So, and if I had 20 images in a column like this, all I'd have to do is set the top one and the bottom one where I want them, and it arranges everything in between. So you're always basically setting the extreme parameters with a group of objects you're going to distribute. So now I have these 3 perfectly set up. I'm going to just go ahead and delete. Now I didn't delete the whole photo. I just deleted the image that's inside of the container. So in order to do that, I'm hovering over the middle till my cursor changes to a palm. And that way I'm selecting the photo and not the frame. And now I could hit delete, and I'll do it for the bottom one. So I have those 3. I'm going to select them, the select tool. I'm going to hold the Option key down and just drag them over. You can see that little red line that pops up in the middle there as I'm kind of moving up and down. That's just telling me everything's nice and lined up. And it's snapping to that. Those, if you don't have those are called smart guides. Let me let this go. View, grids and guides, smart guides. Some people I know hate those. I really like them, especially because I don't work with a grid. Smart guides tells you when things are lining up with other things. And I've always really liked it a lot. I know people that are very annoyed by that. Okay, so that's our master page. Now we can apply that. I'm going to actually apply that master page to page 1. And I'm going to create a second page as well. So here is page 1, here is page 2. And I think what I want to do is maybe on the second page, instead of having 6 of them, I might try to blow up one of these a little larger. But it just, as long as I'm in the same proportion, I'm okay. But one of the other things I have to do before I start importing images is I have to override the master page objects. So right now I'm on page 1, and if I try to click on anything in here, my placeholder or any of that stuff, it won't let me. So I have to go back to my old friend, Command-Shift-Click, and then when I click on an object, it overrides that lock on the master page. And now I can change this to slides. It does not change the master page. It only does it on this page. If I go to the second page, it still says placeholder title. If I go to my master slide, it still says this, or the master page, it says the same thing. So it only overrides it for that page. And now I'm going to Command Shift and click on the rest of these. I'm just going to kind of grab them in order. It doesn't matter. You click in any order you want. And just by clicking on them, you've made them into live objects. And now I can start adding images to them. Before I do that, I'm going to change the second page a little bit. Made them all live. Delete that one. And I'm going to make one of those images. And again, I'm holding the shift key down so that I'm always in the same. Oh, I was. Let me let go. Now I got to hit undo. Okay, hold the shift key down. That way I'm still in proportion. No matter where I move my cursor, it's that ratio stays the same. And that's the important thing about proportion. Actually, maybe that's the first page, or no, I'll just leave it like this. Okay, so now I'm ready to go. Now I'm ready to add images to this. But I can't drag and drop. So I'm going to go to File, Place. And remember, I think Photoshop has a place command. Don't use it. It does a whole different thing. It's called Smart Objects. It doesn't work the same way. I always say that as a word of warning, because there's usually somebody who finds it in Photoshop and, oh, it does the same thing like it does in InDesign, and it doesn't. I wish they called them different things. Anyway, I'm going to go to my desktop. I'm going to find my slideshow. There it is. And I'm going to make sure that Show Import Options is selected. By default, it's not. So I'm going to bring that up, and I'm going to uncheck Replace Selected Item. That doesn't matter as much. Now I'm going to click Open. Now here's the options. And I could select for pages. I could pick up a specific page, but I'm just going to go all, even though I'm not going to use all of them. It doesn't matter. And I'm going to click OK. I'm not going to worry about the options. Now, because all these pages are live and I'm on page 1, I can just click anywhere in this box and it places it perfectly. And there's page 2, 3, 4. So very quickly able to kind of lay things out. Now here's my second page, and it's got a bigger image, doesn't care. It just enlarges it or shrinks it to whatever size it actually is, as long as it's in proportion. So if you know what your format is, like if all your images are square, or depending on how what camera you took them with, you can kind of almost lay out a lot of your portfolio without having the objects there. So you could create variations even on these pages like this. It's a really fast way. It just takes a little time at the beginning to set things up, but it can really, really speed your process up, especially with repetitive stuff like this. I developed this because I have to have a portfolio with like all my lectures and things like that. So I'll have like 4 pages of slides laid out like this so that people can see them in my portfolio. Okay, so hope this helped. Oh, by the way, I still have a few pages in this PDF that I, need to distribute. But I don't need them. So I'm just going to click on any other tool and it just kind of gets me out of there. I'll double click on the page thumbnail and I can hit the W key to do a quick preview to see what this looks like. Looks pretty good. Actually, it does look pretty good. And yeah, and that's adding images, especially repetitive images, into master pages.